You're listening to Innovation for Alpha, where we explore everything at the intersection of healthcare innovation and finance. Through our discussions and interviews, we keep you informed and educated about healthcare innovations, next-level venture investing, and everything involving the combination of the two.
Hi, everybody. It's Tobin Arthur, your host for Innovation for Alpha. And today I'm joined by Eric Strasser, who is the CEO of Zest, who's got a really incredible background and pathway by which he came to Zest. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Well, let's jump in. Eric, you're based in the Bay Area. You've had a really interesting background in the wearable space. Why don't we just start with a little bit of your history?
Okay, great. Yeah, no, most of my career has been consumer-facing technologies. Even earlier, I was working at Intel for a number of years, and we were always looking to figure out new ways to bring technology to consumers. Back in those days, it was mostly through computers and laptops, and we looked at some internet devices, but it was really before technology got to the point where you could wear it. And but I always was intrigued by the impact technology can have on people's lives. And fast forward about a dozen years or so, and one of our co-founders had created a technology based on a wearable device that was about the time that Fitbit started doing wearables, but they had not done heart rate monitoring yet. And we knew that they would do that eventually, but we thought that the best place to do this was on the finger. And we created a prototype. We went out and raised money, and we actually did a lot of innovation around what it takes to make a ring. The company was called Motive, and it was truly the first mass-produced wearable device that fits on the finger. It does a lot of things that you're seeing today in wearables in the finger space, but we really forged ahead in areas that were the challenges with wearing a device on the finger, which included a curved battery and sensors that were required that did not exist at the time. Our intention wasn't quite clear when we first started the company to become a mass-produced consumer device company. We really wanted to build the technology and see if we could license that out. Because to be a mass-produced consumer device company, you have to have not tens of millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars to really support the manufacturing and the consumer aspect of marketing and returns and customer support. They're so important when you are selling a hardware device. We had a really successful run, and I'm very proud with what we did, and we did end up selling the company and exiting. But what I took forward from that experience was the hardware component of it was really, I felt in many ways, the limiting factor of being able to get data and transmit that data in a way that a consumer can then feel like they're interacting with something that adds value. Wearables themselves are a limitation because you have to take them off, you have to charge them, you have to put them back on. There's something that you have to get over that barrier of wearing a device. And I think that there's an absolute market for that, and it's going to grow. And there's no question that data is important, but it always left me that there's something more there. And, we can talk a little bit more about the direction that took.
Yeah, that's great. Good precursor. So fast forward, you were introduced to Dr. Ning. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you guys got connected, and then getting pulled into lead Zest.
Yeah, so after we exited Motive, I was really looking to do something different, and also was going to look at taking some time off. And then the pandemic hit, and the idea of taking a year's worth of travel around the world didn't really seem like it was too compelling at that point. So Andrew had this concept that he'd been working on, which was to address probably one of the most significant health issues right now facing the US and many other countries. And that is the equivalent of, I think, a pandemic in many ways. It's an epidemic of obesity and overweight challenges that people are having about eating and dieting. And I was really intrigued by that because my experience at Motive, I saw that people were trying to find answers in data, and data that can be taken from a device is really, it's binary, it's numeric. You're not really getting a sense of the feelings and sense of the state of the user. And the idea of being able to build a an app which works on a device you're going to obviously be carrying, which is your phone, I thought was interesting. And with weight loss and eating, so much of that is behavioral and doesn't require data. And so that really intrigued me, because then I don't have to worry about, hardware and the batteries and the customer support that goes along with devices that don't work or that scratch or that, don't function the way people intend, and can really focus on the behavioral aspect of better health. And that's something that it influenced really a lot of what we built with Zest.
We'll get into Zest. I want to get a description of Zest and start touching on that, but maybe give Andrew a little bit about Andrew, since he's obviously the founder or the innovator behind this.
Yeah, so early days, and I hope Andrew's okay with me sharing this. Andrew is someone who is obviously a leading expert in AI, and he's if you have a chance to check out his latest TED Talk that was about how AI can be applied to everyday life. But he is the founder of Coursera, and was behind Google Brain, and has been now innovating in bringing AI to the masses, right, as a technology that can change people's lives in many ways. And I think that AI is misunderstood. It's thought of as a technology that's unobtainable by many people, especially in technology space where you're developing something. AI seems like it's very expensive to build and create. But in reality, the ability to use AI for systems that we're building is becoming much more commonplace. And so Andrew's idea was initially, is how can we take AI and apply it to dieting, or better yet, better health. And so through AI Fund, which is a fund he started, he invested in a couple ideas that are related to health and a number of other theses. But the one that I took on was, how do we apply AI to improving diet?
And you shared with me at one point, and most people would connect with this, that Andrew was at Google, and Google, like a lot of the tech companies, has got snacks everywhere and, food at your disposal. And so, he was probably like everybody in those environments, not eating the healthiest, and was combating that. And so that was a little bit of the personal inspiration behind, figuring out how to apply AI to this particular space. There was a personal connection there.
Absolutely. And that's the part that I think he's okay with me sharing today, is that he had gained quite a bit of weight, and he was looking for ways to lose it, and had turned to the common place, which is apps and even some books, and was reading through and said, there's a hole here, because it's missing a behavioral aspect that you can achieve by interacting with AI, and how do you deliver this content through a mobile device? They had done some research with Stanford, and it was very compelling. I mean, the behavioral aspect of what goes into what people think about when they're eating is emotional, but it also is very often focused around very directional calorie in, calorie out. And in his vision, there was a lot more to that. And that's what we attempted to build in the approach we took with Zest.
So give us a description in its present state. What exactly is Zest?
So Zest is a combination of really three elements, and I break them down because I want there to be understanding that it's not just one solution fits all. First of all, I think of dieting and eating in general as, in broad terms, just like learning a language. If you think about learning a language, it's something that you're influenced early on. Really, your family, your parents, your friends early on influence very much about what types of food you eat, the environment you're in, where you grew up. And that carries forward through your life. And it actually can be very difficult to switch your diet, if you call it that. I use diet in my terminology as not dieting, it's trying to restrict your diet, but actually what you typically eat.
Sure.
We try to avoid a lot of words that are related to restrictive diets, because they are combined with a lot of behavioral challenges that people will have that's beyond what I think can be addressed in the app.
That's fair.
And what we looked at really is three elements that combine this knowledge of what you have, which is what you eat, right? And it's a behavioral knowledge that you've had that's been built up over time. And then as you go through, your behaviors change based on not what really is best for you, but through advertising, marketing, the things now that you're learning through, your influencers on YouTube and all the other social channels. And you're not getting really a clear understanding of what really it means to be eating healthy.
Mm.
And so our approach is to really understand that where you're getting your information from and how can we influence that information over time, just like learning a new language, so that becomes fluent. So you're not thinking about it. You're just automatically changing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a graph on our, if you look at it, there's a white paper that you can download from our website that shows kind of the behavioral change as opposed to a diet. If you're on a diet, there's an endpoint. There's a structured program that usually requires you to reduce the number of calories you're eating or eat one type of food that's very restrictive. And that is good for short term, but for long term, it's about changing the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that you have to think like a healthy person, right? I mean,
Right.
A healthy person is, by definition, a change in your perspectives. And so we really thought of that as the core of what we need to do. And it included education. You have to have lessons and teach people what this means, just like learning a new language.
Yep.
But then you have to practice it. And practice it's where a lot of the diet apps focus on practicing on the restrictions or what are red, green, and yellow foods and all the other ways they've tried packaging this. And what we looked at it, really the habit approach. How do you take small steps to make big changes in your life?
Mm.
And then we added the meditative and the psychology and the behavioral components that can be learned through things that are really kind of skill based. And so those are the three things that we've done. We've done the lessons, the learning, we've done the habit change, which is making small steps, and then we call them skills, which are really things that go along with that from a cognitive approach to dieting.
I want to get into a little bit of how somebody accesses this. But it reminds me, we were just discussing yesterday, my kids and my wife, we were talking about Al Michaels, the sports broadcaster. He's kind of a character, but he's sort of infamous for saying he's never eaten a vegetable in his life. And so we were talking about this, and my kids were like, how is it possible not to have a vegetable in his entire life? And then when my one son asked my wife, he said, how do you think he would react if he ate a vegetable? Would he like it? She goes, probably not, because he's not used to those tastes. His tastes have been programmed a certain way. And so he's probably going to react, differently. It'd be like somebody who eats sugar all the time, and all of a sudden you give them something that's, got dense fiber. It's just the texture and everything's going to be off. But it's a little bit of what you're talking about. You are kind of your environment. You pick these things up, and reprogramming that is a process. Maybe Al Michaels needs the app. He needs to learn to like vegetables. So talk a little bit about where the company is and how somebody that says, this is really interesting, I need to lose weight. I mean, how are you reaching the consumers at this point?
Yeah. So, it's really interesting when you think about going back to vegetables and never eating vegetables. Is like one of the things I like to bring up is that broccoli doesn't come in a fancy box. It doesn't have an advertising campaign behind it.
Right.
It sits on a shelf in the produce section, and most people walk by broccoli or some of the other vegetables and not know really what to do with it. I mean, you're sure steamed broccoli is the standard, but even that for a lot of people in the world doesn't really relate to good tasting food. And so, and there's so many other vegetables and produce and meats and fish and list goes on. But when it comes to like whole foods that are not processed, that comes in a box with the advertising campaign behind it, there has to be a step that you take in your understanding of what those foods are that make them feel like they're achievable or accessible. You can cook them or you can eat them, and make it feel like they will taste good. Do that. Yep. And it's incredible, just the small things that you can teach through an app that change that perception. So at Zest, we originally created a website, and we knew the website wasn't the right step, but we wanted to test the process that people go through and understanding what foods are and enjoying those foods. And we created the website. We had a lot of content on there that was absorbable on a web interface, but everyone said, we need it in a mobile design. So obviously we knew that was the next steps. But what we did get out of that research we did on the website was that up to 85% of the people that did use the website and read through the content lost some weight. And that's not to say you lose the weight right away.
Sure.
Not like you're going to lose it if you're restricting your diet, but over time, those behavioral changes have an impact. And in fact, for me, myself, when I joined Zest, I didn't think I needed to lose weight. I knew I was probably could lose a few pounds, but I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm going to go on a diet. But I naturally reduced my natural weight by 7 pounds just by changing the way I perceive my foods. And I didn't think I really needed to learn anything. I was feeling pretty confident that I was eating healthy. But it's an interesting way of rethinking about what food means to us. And it's also, I think the most important thing is that it has to be done in an entertaining way. I think the reason why so many of these apps fail, especially if they're diet apps or diet books, is because they're burdensome. They have to take willpower. They have to make you think about it. And sure, some people might try to gamify it, but in the end, it's not sustainable. What we're trying to do with Zest is not have a limited library. We feel like we could build an infinite amount of content, and it's not just coming from us, but it's coming from registered dietitians and other health experts. It doesn't come from influencers on YouTube that are talking about the latest diet. That, I think, we're fighting that battle. We're also fighting the packaged good battle, which is promoting diet foods that are not necessarily healthy or necessary in the first place, because you can get the same benefits of eating whole foods that you're getting out of a diet bar or a diet shake. And it's more cost effective, and it can taste even better than what you would if you buy a packaged good that is made for shelf stability and distribution. And then it benefits the grocery stores, right? The grocery chains make more money on Whole Foods, their produce sections.
Right.
They make a lot of money off of packaged goods based on shelving costs, but the slotting fees that they make. But in reality, the amount of money that they make off of Whole Foods being sold in the produce sections or in the meat and poultry sections is actually greater than what they would if they were selling you a box of cereal. So it's their benefit. And that's where I think our target is not to look. I'd like to see Zest be distributed through health and wellness providers and insurance providers, but also through places where people go to buy their foods and introducing them to greater diversity in what they eat. And so those are the angles that we're going through right now as we look to how we're going to distribute the app. And it's not going to be an app, the way I see it, is that you're going to just go to the app stores and download Zest. You'll probably find it through integration with other apps that are available through larger audiences that you get when you go to a grocery store chain or an insurance provider.
Sounds like a great partnership with Amazon and Whole Foods is a natural, literally.
Yeah, I think that's, when you think about it, your app that you have for Whole Foods right now is mostly around buying the foods and discounts, and you zap your little barcode there, your QR code to get your discount. But it really should take you further into the education of what those foods are and introducing you how to make those foods healthy. And when you go in shopping, you should have an app that helps you guide you through that shopping experience. And that's what we're looking to create.
That's a great idea. So the company, you had mentioned Andrew sort of seed funded the business. Kind of talk about sort of the mechanics behind the scenes of, you guys going to raise some additional capital? Are you waiting to hit certain milestones at the moment, or what are some of the key milestones that you're looking for, the next 6 months or so?
So most of the money that was spent so far has been in the research and development side of things. And we've spent quite of time developing this app. I mean, I can tell you it's that the amount of time it took to develop the app compared to the amount of time that was researched and the approach that we're taking is, disproportionate. Now that we have the app developed in a very, what I would call a very early stage, let's see if it will function type of way, and we're getting feedback on it, we're now applying more of the features and development that we're going to take going forward. Currently, the app is available through partners. We have a pilot partner that we're currently running it through, and we're getting feedback on. And we have a roadmap, a pretty robust roadmap of work that we still need to do to make the app fully functional for mass market. We are also simultaneously looking for better partners that can bring us forward for the channels I just spoke about,
Yep.
and also looking for investment to help build this market, because it does take a significant amount of effort to be able to take on the YouTubes, the influencers, and the advertisers that are out there that are obviously interested in driving demand, but
Yeah.
usually driven by advertising and clicks and things that are counterintuitive to actually building a healthier behavior. And so that's something that we're willing to take on, and we're looking forward to changing that dynamic. But it is a big step that we still need to take.
Well, it's a huge space. I mean, you kind of indicated earlier, obesity, weight, et cetera, is leading to so many different things. I mean, you can point to heart disease, you can point to, there's ties to Alzheimer's and all kinds of chronic pain and even cancer. So it's massive. Pardon the pun, but it's got a significant touch. So this is a great space. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about the company. We definitely want to stay abreast of what's going on. We're going to provide some additional coverage about the company, some additional information in the MD Next magazine, and we'll have some bonus content. Eric and I will talk about some additional things. So for those of you who are interested in this space, I think Zest is a great company to keep an eye on. And Eric, really appreciate you spending some time to give us up the basics of the company.
Thank you, Tobin. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about it.
See you again soon for the next episode of Innovation for Alpha. Make sure to go to Innovation for Alpha for access to prior episode links, show notes, and other valuable resources. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any investment decisions, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by Angel MD Media, and written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.